So in this section, we are going to use our iDesktop. And for preparation, I believe you've all received your email, and we are going to use this. First, you need to install our iDesktop. And if you have any question on install or apply for the trial license, you can type your question in the chat box, and my colleagues will answer your question and help you. So let's get started for our first section. And can anybody see my slides? So in this section, we're going to introduce our GIS data production and processing. And I'm Lu. You can call me Lu. So firstly, I will introduce our SuperMap iDesktop products. There's CloudGIS server, including iServer, iPortal, and iManager. And there's also Edge GIS server called iEdge. And in our section, we're going to use our terminal GIS platform. And you can see that in the left side of our slides, it's called SuperMap iDesktop. And as a tool for producing spatial data, the iDesktop GIS platform can provide the ability to input, store, process, query, and analyze, and also make maps for spatial data through a convenient visual interface. And here are varieties of data processing methods. So when we gain our GIS data source, including many different types, such as our map data, there's paper map and electronic map, and also image data, such as satellite and remote sensing data. And there is terrain data and attribute data, such as the statistic data from website or our text report. So in our practice, I'm going to use region data and attribute table data to create a path to show the trend of how tornado migrates as season changes from one place to another through all these years. And we're gonna use the data that we've downloaded from our link that you can find in the chat box. If you are not prepared, you can find it in the link, and there are 4 parts of the data. We're gonna use the second and the third part. So here comes to our data import. First, I'll introduce you to the data structure in our desktop product. And apologize if I'm not looking at the camera because I have to look at our slides. And we can open our iDesktop 10i. So could anybody type 1 or type anything in the chat box to let me know that you've opened our iDesktop? Because for the next following 2 hours, we're going to use this software to do some exercise. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. And I'll firstly lead you to quickly get to know our SuperMap iDesktop from the following aspects. So first, let's take a look at our main work interface of iDesktop. When we install and open our iDesktop, we can see the following working interface. Above the main work interface is the functional area, which is a ribbon-styled functional area. In here, different functions are effectively organized through tabs. And in the same time, at the upper left of the functional area is a quick access bar. You can find that we can find a select, we can find pan, or zoom in and zoom out in here. And some of the functions are easier for users to use. So in addition, in the upper right of the functional area is our search bar. You can type anything, and for example, to search for our, the analysis tool. And in the main window of this, under the Start tab, is our map window. And on the left side is the in the functional search bar, we can quickly locate the function that we want to use. And the data we currently need to use is managed in the workspace manager on the left side of the work interface. And here is our map. When we open a map, we can list or see all the layers that's being used in our current map window in the manager. And in the status bar of our map window below, because I haven't opened a map, so we cannot see the status bar. So on the left side of our window in the workspace manager, we can see that this is our main work interface. And I will firstly introduce you to the concept of our workspace. In our workspace manager, the first root node is the workspace. And the workspace organize and manage multiple data sources. It can also organize and manage multiple maps, scenes, resources, and etc. So, I believe you've all received our link for our test. And focus on the page 3. You can find 4 questions. And for the question 1, where are maps restored in our SuperMap I desktop? You can see 4 options called workspace, data source, layouts, and scene. And I believe you all have the answer that maps are directly restored in our workspace. So that's for our question 1. And we can see that each of these data sources can organize in multiple data sets. In other words, the data set is depend on the data source for storage and management. And as for the map, layouts, resource, they are restored and managed depending on the workspace. So, in a word, what is a workspace? We can see it as a working environment that it is used to store our users' working environment, including the location alias and opening method of the currently opened data source. There are also some maps and scenes and resources, that is the style for our marker or line or fill. And look at the chat box. Yeah, we can see our test link. And I will mention it if I'm talking about the answer. So next, we can see that on the second, under the workspace is our data source. And how do we understand the concept of a data source? In our SuperMap, we can understand that the data source as a warehouse for storing data. It is composed of various types of data sets. And different types of data sets organize and manage different spatial data. And the database data source supports the current mainstream data types. So this is the main structure of our data and how it is stored in our iDesktop. As for the vector data and raster data, we all support to import them in our iDesktop for further production and processing. So I'm gonna need all of you to follow my steps and we'll do a little practice. So we're gonna use desktop to import our US administrative district region data named region.shapefile into our target data source. So I will go back to iDesktop. And so we've mentioned earlier that the workspace is for storage. And if I want to import a new data set into our data source, I need to create a new file data source. We right-click on the data source and to choose a new file data source. I put it in our target file and I name it December 16. Okay, click Save. And we can see that here is a new data set. And in here, when I right-click on it, I can choose to import our data set. So for any of you who missed our last step, we right-click on the data source and choose to create a new file data source to store our data set. And we right-click on our data set called December 16, and we chose to import data set. So is anybody following me? On the data set called December 16, we right-click and to choose to import our data set. And we can see a window called Import Data. And on the upper left side is a button called Add File. And we go to our data. It's called GIS data processing. We double click, find our shapefile. Okay, I'm going to do it again. On the dataset called December 16, we right-click, choose Import Dataset. Then we click Add File to find our data named GIS Data Processing. And we can find a file called shapefile.shp. And we chose the region.shp and click Open. We wait a few seconds and we can see that on the right side is our target data source and our result data set. And we click Import. So in our workspace manager, we can see that this is the region.shapefile that I've imported in our iDesktop. And if I want to see the content of this dataset, I double click it to add it to our map window. Let's pay attention that our dataset does not store the style of our data, except for our text data and CAD data. So there's a question in our test link called there's a question that we need to choose true or false. And so because our dataset doesn't store style, so when I open a line dataset, every time I open a line dataset is under different color, right? Yeah, our dataset does not store the style of our data. So every time I open a line dataset, it's in different color. And this is our question 4. This is the answer of our question number 4. So now I've import region data. So I'll go back to my slide and we've learned how to import our shapefile data. So if I have an attribute table data, how am I going to import it as well as the spatial data, as well as the spatial information of this data? And let's look at our data. I will go back to my desktop. Wait a second. Okay. First, I will check the data. We can find the data called GIS data processing, and we double click to find the attribute table data. We can see that is Excel. And when I open the data, I can see the content of it. We can see that, yeah, it's stored in our data called GIS data processing. And we double click to find the attribute table data. And let's browse our data first. We can see that it includes the year, the month, the day that the tornado happens, and the time, of course. And the state is where the tornado happens. And the magnitude stands for how severe the tornado is. And we can also find the start longitude point and the start latitude data of the tornado. So I will go back to iDesktop. And it's the same as our last step. We right-click on our dataset called December 16. And we chose to import dataset. So I will repeat. We right-click on our dataset called December 16. And we chose to import dataset. And in our add file, we find the GIS data processing and look at the attribute table. And we chose open. So on the right side, we can find a button called import spatial data. And we need to import its spatial information. So as for the coordinate, we chose the start longitude and the start latitude to import the spatial data of our attribute table data. And we click import. And to display it in our map window, I right-click and add it to our current map. We chose yes or no. It doesn't matter. So this is how we import our attribute table data into our iDesktop. Does anyone have a question? Okay, I will continue.
Okay.
Okay, I will repeat my steps and
You finished?
so on the December 16, the data set called December 16, we right-click and to choose import dataset. And we find the add file button. And the data is restored in our data called GIS data processing. We find the attribute table data. We chose open. Then on the right side of our import data window, we can find to choose import our spatial data. And for the longitude, we chose this one called S. It stands for the start point of our longitude. And for the latitude, we chose this one. So I click import. And this is how to import our attribute table data. And if I want to display it in our map window, I can right-click on the attribute table. And we chose to add it to a new map or a current map. It doesn't matter. And here I will choose to add it to a new map. So we cannot see all the points because there's too many. And we can right-click and to choose full extent to show all the points in our map window. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
So does
Louis.
anyone have question? I will repeat my steps. And I will continue to share my slides. Okay. We've learned how to import our attribute table data as well as the spatial information. And I will introduce you to the coordinate system in our GIS software. And there are plane and projected coordinate system, geographic coordinate system, and projected coordinate system. We need to pay attention that data sources, data sets, and maps have their own coordinate system in our iDesktop. So pay attention to question number 3. What do I need to do if the coordinate value of the data is incorrect? And I will give you the right answer here. So if the coordinate value of the data is correct and the coordinate system information of the data set is also correct, that means our data is good. And the coordinate value of the data is correct, but the coordinate system of the data is incorrect, then we need to reset the coordinate system. And as for question number 3, if the coordinate value of the data is incorrect, then we need to do a data registration. So this is the answer to question number 3. I need to do data registration if the coordinate value of the data is incorrect. And if our several data sets has inconsistent coordinate system, then we can do a projection transformation or a dynamic projection. So these are steps to reset the coordinate system of our data. And I will not do a demonstration on how to reset a coordinate system because the slides will be sent to all of you as after the class. And we go to the 5th part of this section called spatial analysis. So we are going to use a tool in our iDesktop called measuring geographic distributions. And the tool is called mean center. I will show you after where to find the tool and to use it to analyze our data. So the mean center tool is to identify the geographic center or the density center of a set of features. And this is, I will show you in our iDesktop to use this tool. So follow my steps to find the spatial analysis tab on the upper side of our window. Next to 3D data, we find spatial analysis. And on the right side is spatial statistical analysis. And we find measuring geographic distributions. And we chose our second one called mean center. It's in the spatial analysis, we find the spatial statistical analysis, and we find measuring geographic distributions. And we chose the second one, mean center. It doesn't matter if you are lose the step or whatever, because in our next section, we're going to use a workspace that I created before. So don't worry if you lose my steps. Of course, it's better that you are following my leads. Okay. And considering it's already 4 p.m., I will not give you a demonstration, I'm sorry. And I will go back to my slides. So in this section, I'm sorry. So in this section, we learn how to import our shapefile data and attributable data into our iDesktop, and to check the coordinate system of our data, and to do spatial analysis using the mean center tool, and also the conversion of our data type. And here's a little preview on our last section. So in our next section, we will learn how to set style for a map, and to give you a few tips for visualization and electronic map. So you can subscribe us on YouTube. And there's also some videos on our official website. So thank you. This is our second section.